Welcome, basketball fans, to another episode of the Shooter's Roll, podcast made by fans for the fans. I'm your co-host, D-Swizzle, and joining me tonight, as he normally, usually, and always does, is my boy T. What's happening, T?
Hey man, I felt like I was a kid in the candy store again. Fucking, we got to watch NBA or some sort of NBA, and the greatest of them all. So just can't wait to get into this week's conversations.
Yep, and we will be talking about The Last Dance in this episode, and none better to join us on the panel for tonight is my former high school running mate, Backcourt 2000, the three-point demon himself, 5'8" from Blacktown, my boy RJ. How's it going, Jay?
How's it going, boys? Thanks for having me tonight.
Will do, mate. Good to have you on the show. I mean, I don't think there's any better person to have on this episode of the Shooter's Roll but for you to talk about Jordan and the Bulls dynasty. In particular, we're talking about, The Last Dance, the Netflix show that's on special and on show at the moment, featuring the 97-98 Chicago Bulls, the final Chicago Bulls championship of the second three-peat. Just kicking it right off the bat, Jay, what were your thoughts on the first two episodes, and what caught your attention the most about the Netflix show?
So before I start, right, like everyone else, I'm sure you were all counting down. I was counting down. I was counting down to the second. I was waiting for the kids to go to bed, and then I had to watch two episodes of Money Heist, and then I'm going to jump into, The Last Dance. And after The Last Dance came on, I started dancing. I was like, man, it's time. It's time. And when that thing came on, it just brought back childhood memories all over again.
Yeah.
Man, it was just so refreshing, to be honest, especially with this situation we've got at the moment.
Yeah.
Man, it's like when they all went to bed, I was like, man, it pretty much reminded me, I didn't know all of what's happened. I mean, it gave me more depth and actually what happened that season. Because I'm a diehard Bulls fan since the beginning. So even when those things came on and when YouTube came on, I researched all that. I just want to make sure, what I was reading, what I was hearing was right. And, with Facebook now and social media, all these things are starting to come out. So now I'm just trying to proofread all these things. And when this came out, wow, it was, especially with the Jerry duos, those guys, wow. Biggest antagonists of them all, those two. Wow, they played a really good role in dismantling the team. That's the thing that really got me, that, managers these days really want their teams to go and succeed and win a championship, not just once if they can. But these guys really, their egos really got in the way from what I see. So it really took me back that how the winning factor, and the thing with sports is it sort of took a back seat with them, and their egos sort of took over and took the front seat, and and sort of led to the whole team being gone. And the surprising thing with Jerry Krause is that he really just said, well, beginning of the season when he told Phil that, look, this is the last time that you're going to be here, I was like, whoa, okay. So he's calling the shots. And surprisingly, Jerry Reinsdorf didn't actually say anything. He sort of went along with it. So to me, it really proved that, well, I think they felt like discredited a lot, and they felt like they didn't really get their due pretty much, and that all the glory was to Jordan, to Jackson, to Pippen, to Rodman. So for me, watching all that, I was just like, wow. I told everyone, I told the baby, even the baby was beside me. I was like, man, I got to watch this. I got to pay attention, So yeah, so that was my first take on it.
Yeah. That take you back to junior days, our childhood days, and I'm sure we're all of the same age bracket. And how did you find? What are your first thoughts on the show, T?
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to uncover, I guess. And I guess if we get through it, If we go through D-Swizzle, we'll basically get into it. I think if we all comment, we'll be here all night.
Well, let's go through it. And RJ touched upon the first issue I did want to talk about is the general manager, the relationship between the brass and the players. And I'll play devil's advocate here, and I'm happy to do this because, Jerry Krause is portrayed on the show as, cutthroat, egotistical sort of guy. But my point of view is, and I don't necessarily personally share this point of view, is wasn't Jerry Krause the sort of a trailblazer and of modern basketball about how the brass need to look after the franchise? He was Sam Hinkie before Sam Hinkie was doing his thing in Philly, and having someone with this vision to say that player is getting old, that player used by date is approaching. We need to do more for this franchise in terms of longevity, in terms of competition. I don't think that that angle, in terms of the positivity of that angle, was shown in the first episode. Thoughts? I'll start with you, Jay.
Good point, actually. Well, yeah, it wasn't really shown. But from what I gathered from the episodes so far, was really that he just grew resentment with the coach and the team. Pretty much, it just grew, and it got the best of him. But really, he should have taken a step back, because really, those guys are the ones who played. They're the ones who played back to back. They played 82 games plus playoffs, and really, they're the ones. Even now in the modern day, like, you don't hear any managers that take the credit. You can hear Jerry West is in the Clippers, but he doesn't go say, well, I'm the one who put this team together, and I'm the one who. Everyone knows, but at the end of the day, you can't put players before the organization. Like, you got to put the players first, because they're the one who plays. They're the ones who risk their bodies. They're the ones who stretches their limits. So, from what I can see, really, like, Jerry Krause was, I don't know, he was really painted a really, really bad picture. And he shouldn't have really, I think they would have 2 more good years if he didn't put his ego first. That's what I can gather. Because when people went to Houston, to Portland, he didn't do too bad. If you can look at his stats, he didn't do too bad. When you look at Steve Kerr, he didn't do too bad either. Luke, well, that you can debate that. Dennis didn't do too bad either. So I think his assessment for the players, I don't think it was an accurate assessment. I think it was a lot of his ego already saying, well, you know what, dismantle this team regardless. He didn't assess it at all. That's what I think, anyway.
You've used T?
Yeah. So, but there has to be credit given to him too, right? Like, he's the one that put the team together. Outside of Michael Jordan, he pretty much drafted the rest of the team, and he also put in Phil Jackson into the organization. He was assistant. He was assistant for 2 years, and then became the head coach. But in terms of his ego, yeah, definitely it got in the way. Like, if he didn't go out there and say, "Oh yeah, organizations win championships," the actual quote was taken out of context. He actually said players and the team, and then the organization. But all the reporters just took the last bit and they ran with that, because every story has to have a villain. And for this, I guess this whole series is going to be Jerry's downfall, and he's not allowed to defend himself. So for me, he did have a lot to play with it, but like in today's society, we have tall poppy syndrome. We don't like humans that stand up and take the credit. We want people to, the right people to stay in the background. The players are in the foreground, so the players get the glory because they play the game, they do all the training, and I guess it's like human nature. Like we want our players to take the front seat, and then all the owners and the management takes the back seats, and they're the one making the millions and billions. So yeah, that's where my stance on it is D-Swizzle. How about yourself?
Well, on point, I'll address the last part first. The image and the franchise, the Chicago Bulls, it's synonymous with the faces, the way it's marketed. You're not going to put Jerry Krause's mug as the promotional material in front of, to promote, the team. So in a sense, I understand where the players are coming from, that it's the players first and foremost that win championships. But credit should be given where it's due, and Krause made the right moves in regarding trades, especially Pippen, acquiring him from Seattle, and also doing the right drafting Jordan, obviously not screwing up and choosing another player as the number 3 pick in the 84 draft. I mean, these are all important things, but maybe the rub of it is the Krause, and this is all the benefit of hindsight. I don't think the approach and the way he did it was possibly the best way to do it, where he alienated not just the players, but arguably the city as a whole of Chicago, turning Chicago against each other about opinions of how the team was to be run going forward and the future direction of the team. In saying that, also, I agree with RJ's point regarding whether or not the validity of his assessment of player shelf life was accurate, because, I mean, he left Jordan to one side, but Pippen, despite the injury he did suffer and had to have surgery on, was still at that time arguably a top 10 player in the NBA. And you couldn't, and as long as MJ was willing to put up his hand to play the game, you needed to have MJ, and MJ quoted this, Scottie Pippen was my best teammate. You're not going to run an organization without your best players' input. We're seeing that today. We're seeing how players can, play with mates. We're talking about, first name that pops in my head, Kyrie Irving. He'll go where he wants, and he'll say, I'm doing this. And organizations are bending backwards for players. I mean, Kyrie went to Boston and see how that went, and he went to the Nets and they fired Atkinson just prior to the COVID outbreak. So players have a big say, and I think when you have someone of the talent that Jordan was at that time, 97, 98, he still had a lot to give. So, I mean, no one's going to defend Krause, but maybe it is my job to defend Krause, and I'm happy to do it. Maybe it was the right thing to be upfront and say to Phil Jackson, it's your last year. None of this, circus about, I'm taking it one game at a time. I'm going to, Durant did it before he left GSW. I'll make up my mind when the season's out, and then they'll drop a bombshell at the end. Maybe he did the right thing by being upfront. I think that's as far as I'll take defending Krause regarding his GM motivations and movement. Any other further thoughts on the brass at Chicago at the time?
Yeah, just touching on, we'll basically get into it for the second episode, but just on draft night of the last championship, Tracy McGrady was going to get drafted for Pippen. Sorry, traded for Pippen. So yeah, it's interesting how these scenarios played out or not. And I guess the news from that was Jordan found out about it and he squashed it. So yeah.
And how about the great Mike? I mean, humble beginnings, and I did like how the show transitioned to his childhood and his relationships. And I mean, some of these things people already knew because some of it is folklore, and his determination and grit. But it was just interesting to hear players from his college days, notably James Worthy, talk about how immediately they knew that Jordan was a special player. Jay?
Well, yeah, you're right. It was really interesting. We would hear about his brothers, his mother, his background. It's good to see that, even his brothers got interviewed, his mother got interviewed. It was all interesting because it really, really showed that they really went in depth and to really get the whole Jordan corner to really talk. And it's interesting what the coaches said and or whoever the other superiors of his time spoke about Jordan to really speak about him, and it was really good. Like, that's the first time I've seen that, so that's why the documentary is really a properly hit, to be honest with you. I've seen a lot of Jordan documentaries and nothing like this. I'm pretty sure. And you know what? We haven't even touched on Dennis Rodman yet. So once that hits, oh man, I'm sure that's really going to be, really interesting. But so far so good. I love documentary. It's really, really, it's just really refreshing to see. We've all of us have sort of moved on and gone to different, different sport teams now, and or about our lives or whatever at the moment. But this sort of takes us back. But at the same time, it's good to see like what they're doing and like what actually happened back then. And it's really refreshing. I really love it, to be honest.
What I really what sort of gave me goosebumps, and this is rare for me watching, I don't get surprised that often, is just when I, put myself in the time. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is in the national championship game in college, who at the time is not a notable senior figure on the team, but whose number was called to take on the biggest shot of the day.
That's right.
The championship winning shot. And to have the guts to pull the trigger. I mean, you miss all the shots you don't take, I suppose, there's the old saying.
Right.
And
absolutely.
He didn't hesitate. And there's that form, when those photos are showing of him and his form, it's a beautiful thing.
Work of art.
Yeah. He transitions in and Jordan gets drafted by the Bulls, and a lot's been made of, the first round pick, pick number one being Hakeem Olajuwon, and then Sam Bowie being number 2 pick, and the infamy that he's received being that Portland has also received for not drafting the GOAT. I don't know if I necessarily we need to touch on this as much, because it is part and parcel of basketball and the what ifs in the game. But just gently, Clyde Drexler and Michael Jordan on the same team. I think that could have worked.
Yeah, it was a different time, but back in that time, the 80s, everyone wanted big men. Like you look at the scouting and the coach when they had Jordan, that number 3, they basically said, "Oh, we wish he was 7'1", and that's ridiculous. They're literally taking away his skill set. Like he was the college player of the year. He hit the game-winning shot, and like straight away they doubted him already. Like even his own team, they wish he was 7'1". It's like crazy, right? Yeah, but if they had Drexler and Jordan, that combination, they basically could have played small forward and shooting guard for sure.
Yeah,
and dominate the league as we see now. Like that's the combination of like Kawhi and Paul George. Like into like a pause man version of Jordan and Clyde.
I don't think PG and Kawhi would like to be known as the poor man's version of Clyde.
Honest truth.
But how about that first season for Jordan? I mean, it was fun to watch that early footage about the early team being the rookie and undoubtedly being the best player already on the team. the traveling. What was it? The Chicago cocaine circus that was made.
Traveling cocaine circus, yeah.
It's just interesting to note the way Jordan approached at the time, being so clean-skinned and focusing about the body as the temple. Obviously, later down the track, and the show is filmed with him having some cognac on the side, I think it is, and Jordan's
his own cognac, by the way.
and Jordan's predilection and taste the expensive cigars. It was just interesting to note, when you're first starting out, the views, when you're a rookie and you get exposed to what it was like back then, because it's a different time now, obviously, but back then, the partying was definitely something that shouldn't have been so shocking, in my view, to Jordan.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was surprised, I guess. They never went in depth with his first couple of teams. Like, you look at all the documentaries they made on Jordan, the playground, and all the whole series, right? It's all about Jordan and his effectiveness to the world. They never go into his early teams, because the only thing that mattered in his first year was he won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. And he was incredible in his first year. Absolutely incredible. As a player, and to consider that, drafted number 1 was Hakeem Olajuwon, future Hall of Famer, 2-time NBA champion, probably the best big man that's ever played the game, arguably. It says a lot about his influence on the team and the stats that he did put up. Now, my question is this: if he was drafted to a better team where and a more stern coach was guiding the ship, do you think the legend of Jordan would have taken on the status that it does have today, given that maybe he didn't play as many minutes, maybe he wasn't afforded as many shots? It's just an interesting what if that I'm pondering in my head. If he was in a different situation that wasn't as, I looked at that Chicago team and I thought, man, that team is so loose. Like, to entrust the keys of the franchise to a rookie, I thought it was a bit loose for them. But that's just my view, and the thought of it was, this was a guy who was rescuing a dying franchise, because at the time they were not significant at all. Any thoughts on whether or not the legend of Jordan would have been the legend of Jordan if he didn't start the way off he did as in his rookie season?
I reckon it would have changed. Considering all the hardship and adversity he had to go through, with the struggling franchise. And if you can see, I don't know if you remember, they made the playoffs playing the Celtics in the first round with a 30-52 record, with a losing record. So with all those things, and I've watched multiple Jordan documentaries. I've got his books, and he said that you have to use anything you can to fuel that fire. And having a losing team and getting like losing in the first round to the Celtics, I'm sure that would have fueled him. But I'm sure if he succeeded first on, maybe the legend of Jordan wouldn't be as great, I think. Because it really drove him. You can tell he's been from college to when he became, even with the Wizards. I mean, my gosh, 50-year-old scoring 40-year-old scoring how many? 51 points? Yep. That's amazing, dude. Like, you'd be lucky to score 10 points when you're 40 at any comp. Like, you know what I mean? So,
you'd be lucky to run around for 10 minutes, mate, at 40, mate.
You'll have to sub off after 2 minutes.
Yeah. Look, it is an interesting thing about all these what ifs, and the way that things have been how things play out. Another interesting thing I found on the show. This is a podcast that talks about ball, and it's not just the live action basketball, but we talk about basketball culture on the show, and The Last Dance being one of them. Is how about the fashion how about the big suits that were back in the day, that was prevalent back in the day, like when the Bulls travelled through to Paris to start off the 97-98 campaign for the McDonald's Challenge, and just the attire. I'm just thinking, wow, fashion. Basketball fashion. It was something else. With the baggy suits and the time. The times. I'm just trying to recollect what we were wearing back in like the late 90s. I remember keppers and cross colors, and it's just that took me by surprise. Is there anything else that you guys picked up on the first season that you thought, oh wow, that's pretty special right there?
Yeah, with the fashion you just touched on, I had older brothers, so they pretty much had this similar style. Like we had this red velvet suit that we shared, baggy of course, and then a green one, and then we also wore the Kanga hats.
The berets.
The berets, right? And when I saw
man.
When I was watching it,
hey Dex, you bought one too.
When I saw it, I was telling my wife, and she's like, "Why the hell would you wear that for?" During that time, it was cool. It was cool, kids.
That's right. No, yeah, I had one too. I had a Kangol one. Dexter had one. I remember that, bro.
Yeah, it was just it's amazing how fashion changes, and back in the day we were thinking, oh, what were our parents wearing in the 70s? What were you wearing, Mum? What were you wearing, Dad? And undoubtedly, when you watch footage like that, no doubt parents around the country and around the world are being asked by their children, Dad, Mum, you were wearing that style back in the 90s? You're so dorky. I'm just going to just imagine conversations in lockdown in households all around the world going through all that. But it was just interesting. I enjoyed seeing glimpses of what life was like and what the fashion was like back there. And I thought the show also did a good job regarding the music that they put in the background as well, and the relevance of the music, and just when LL was playing, I was sort of just bumping my head, and I just thought it was a nice touch regarding the show, and not having keeping it in time, in the context of its time, which I found was a good vibe. And getting onto the title of the show, The Last Dance. This is what I didn't know. I didn't know that Phil Jackson was the owner of the motto for the team for that year has been The Last Dance. I thought that was quite interesting as well. The way Phil Jackson was portrayed on the show. Any thoughts about his way? I thought he was pretty even keeled about it all. They asked him about whether or not, and transitioning off to the second episode that focused on Scottie Pippen, Jordan's the Robin of the Chicago Bulls to Jordan's Batman. I thought Phil, when he was asked about whether or not Scottie did the right thing about holding back on the surgery to enjoy more of his summer break, and I thought Phil played it quite diplomatically in his response. Thoughts on Jordan's running mate, Scottie Pippen, probably the best number 2 player of all time.
Yeah, Phil really, that's why Phil was hired, to be honest. I think he was a really understanding coach. I think he really took, I mean, he was a player before, so I think he knew when things like that come up. And they said that's why he was the best put in a situation, because he can understand. So he never held that against Scottie, you can tell. And he pretty much just understood that, he felt he got the raw end of the deal and he had to handle it. And as Jordan said, they had to do it collectively without him while he was still recovering. So, I mean, Pippen really, really, when he didn't play, you can tell there was a massive hole, and the team missed him, really missed him. And you can tell the tension was there. I mean, I don't know if you still recall the practices. Oh man, that was like, wow. I saw Jordan swear at Harper, and I thought, wow, okay, like it really got to them, emotionally, physically. They were all getting tired. They needed that second spot to be filled, but no one was willing to step up. So Jordan had to take that on. So yeah, it was just really, really just in awe when I was watching the whole thing. But as you can tell, when people came back, they just picked up from pretty much where they left off last season, and it was all great. So.
And what are your thoughts, T, on Scottie Pippen and that his final season there at the 97-98 Chicago Bulls?
I liked how at the time Jordan told him, like in the documentary, that Pippen was selfish, and then Phil Jackson played the diplomatic card saying that Pippen was doing the right thing. So it basically gave Pippen some support, I guess, against Jordan and I guess the organization, right? This organization and the team, I felt like the tension was like really tight. Like there was the players was one organization, and then the Bulls was an organization. So then they basically band together. They band together against management, and they really became like a family. And with Pippen, I felt that he grew into himself. I guess we'll touch on it in episode 2, but yeah, he was perfect for the Bulls and for Jordan. Jordan was the dominant player that only knew one way to play. He didn't know how to communicate with other players. It was his way or the highway, right? Pippen had the same skill set as Jordan, but he also could understand. He could also understand why their players are the way they are. They have off days. They're not always there. They're not always playing hard. They're pretty much not on the same level as Jordan. Part of that, I believe, from his documentary is he came from a massive family, and he had hardship in his family. So he had to manage, I guess, a lot of personalities in his own family. Like myself, come from a big family. I can see that you have to negotiate your way around siblings and your parents, right? And from that, it also, for me, in business and on basketball court, it allows you to understand different personalities. See, and Jordan's history, he was always fighting, right? So he was one of the younger brothers, and his older brothers will always beat up on him, and then he will fight them, right? He will fight them and he will beat them on the court. And that's the way he was brought up. He wasn't brought up, I guess, I wouldn't say soft, but he wasn't diplomatic. He was, his brothers were one way or nothing. And I could also see that in the documentary that his dad was very similar. Like his dad would just write him off. I think there was one scene where Jordan wanted to help out with maybe fixing the car or some sort of hardware. And they would ask him to get something, and he would get something else. And his dad was like, get the hell out of here, you know? So that built like Jordan's, he basically built his determination and built his just competitiveness, like to beat his brothers and get that respect from his father, you know, get that affection. And you can see that in the documentary when he's talking about it. You can see the passion. He's like, I want the attention. I want this. I want that. You know, and he had to work for it. And eventually, you know, these are the things that built him up. So there's two totally different personalities, but together they really fit perfectly. And then you have Phil Jackson, which is like it was just a match made in heaven. Those three, and then you add Rodman. It's like it was an ultimate team. Just their personalities. Like you gave them everything they needed. Phil Jackson gave them everything they needed to succeed, and they just bind it perfectly together.
It was just interesting in the second episode when Steve Kerr made mention that Pippen was the glue guy. He was the guy that brought people and the team together. And that was his role. He did, when the footage showed of Pippen's play, you could see that he was playing defense. He was grabbing loose boards. He was doing putbacks, and he was doing the grunt work that, that sometimes gets overlooked. But people watching ball in the 90s knew that Pippen was he quite possibly could be, one of the forefathers of, what's known as two-way basketball players. brilliant offensively and just a lockdown defender on defense. And it was just interesting to hear the role players like Kerr speak about how Scottie was and his role in the team, and it's just turning on the team. Like, it was an interesting bunch, and this is what the second episode was also touched upon regarding, whilst the focus was on Pippen's injury and his surgery and his contractual issues, which we will touch upon now as well. It was great insight to hear, Bill Wennington and just to see, Ron Harper and Randy Brown, someone who I'd totally forgotten about, that was on that Premier Bulls team, that dynasty, or the second run dynasty. It was just interesting. Your takes, RJ, on that 97-98 Bulls team and the personalities on that team?
Well, if you got a personality like Jordan, you make sure the people around you are all inferior personalities. Because
I don't know. Mate, I thought they it would have been difficult. I mean, they still have Rodman on the team. He was a strong personality.
Yeah. But Rodman knew that if he brought his game, whatever outside of that, I'm sure they're going to leave him alone, and they did. I mean, I already saw the preview for the next episode. I'm not going to give it away, but pretty much they all knew what they can bring. And once you bring what you have to bring to the table, everything else outside of that is irrelevant. So they knew what he can do, and he brought it every night. So whatever he did outside of that, with either Madonna going to Vegas or whatever, they're not going to say nothing. They're not going to say nothing. Yeah, they were a bit skeptical, but they knew that he brought his game every single night. And that's what I mean. It's a perfect mix. But with Jordan's very vocal. Rodman was vocal, but he knew that he couldn't talk over Jordan. So he just made sure. I mean, I've heard multiple interviews as well that it's kind of funny when you play with someone and you say that, and you're pretty much like family, but if you hear like, well, we don't talk during the season. I just thought to myself, what? Your teammates? Yeah, you talk on the court, but you don't talk outside. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's a really weird dynamic. But yet they clicked. Yeah. On the court, they clicked. So for me, it's like, wow, it's like Phil knew that they could all blend and they could all win, and they're there to win. They're not there to like each other. So Phil knew that they all can blend and they'll win a championship together, and that's what they did. So they did what they're supposed to accomplish. So for me, when I see the rest of the teammates, the other guys, they played their role. They're all great role players. They're perfect role players. That's what I think, anyway.
Well, we spoke about earlier the makeup of the team, and we touched upon when Pippen didn't start the season with the 97-98 Bulls, and the Bulls were struggling. They were 0-4 on the road. They needed double overtime to get over the Clippers, who at that point in time were a joke of the team. And we made mention about the person who was going to fill in as the number 2 while Pippen was down injured. Just looking at this roster, any views on who that person should have been? I mean, I've got a certain viewpoint about in terms of who was talented enough to be the number 2. But T, any thoughts?
Yeah, it should have been Ron Harper. Ron Harper early in his career was stated to be the next Jordan. Due to injuries in Cleveland, his career took a second path, and he became like a bit like Sean Livingston in that way. But then Sean could raise up to like certain games. I remember in one finals against the Cavs in the game 1 or 2 and one of the seasons, he scored 20 points. I think Ron Harper did it, but he didn't do it as consistently when Pippen was gone. And I think this team too, going to the third peat, they just got comfortable, right? They got comfortable with everyone. Everyone had the role, and they turned up, and they knew if everyone played the role, it gave them a great chance to win. With Pippen not there, and then they had no warning. They started the season training camp, and then he goes, "I need surgery." So they really didn't have time to plan on the fly. And and it touched on it on the documentary on episode 2, where Jordan's like, "I'll do it all. This is what I'm made for." Like, and when he had that game against the Clippers, and that was his first, I guess, the Chicago's first road win on that third season to three-peat. He had scored like 40, I think 41 or something, 41 or 49 points in double overtime against a team.
49.
49. Okay, yeah, they were. Yeah, they said the LA Clippers at the time were a joke, and it took them. It took a double overtime. So the team was a little bit out of sorts. And in terms of number 2, I think if Ron Harper stepped up, I think that the gap of winning or losing would have been closer to winning. They would have had more of a winning record without Pippen involved.
RJ, thoughts on who should have been the number 2?
He's actually really right about that. Ron Harper's probably the closest to it. Cody wouldn't really suit the role. I can't really see anyone. It's really Ron, pretty much. It was on Ron because Ron was pretty much the next guy on the Bulls roster that would really pretty much pick it up. But you can tell that he's mellowed down a bit. He wasn't the same player as he was in Cleveland. So yeah, and he pretty much knocked everything with that point. If he actually stepped up a little bit more, then the losing would have probably been lesser. But from what I can see with Ron's not really that. I don't think that's his personality. From what I can see, he was quite laid back, and I don't think he was as vocal as Scottie, or as the 1-2 punch. Even when I see him talk, I don't think he was as confident to sort of lead or to sort of be the second to Jordan. I just felt like he could have done it, but I just don't think he would have been as good as we expected if we say that he'll put him in second place. So it was hard because Jordan had to take on a lot more. But yeah, Ron's probably the closest, I think.
Well, Jordan in the show said, you've got to win at all costs. If I have to do it myself, I'll do it. That's so Jordan, isn't it?
It is. It certainly is.
It's definitely so Jordan. Look, I think you made mention of the player I would have thought that should have been taken on a more vital role and more aggressive role would have been Tony Kukoc. I just think given his size, he was Euro basketball before Euro basketball was cool and hip, and Luka Doncic, graced. And look, I think that the way the team was heading into the season after the Last Dance, someone correct me here if I'm wrong, but was Kukoc still contracted? I think he was still quite young at that point. I don't know if Krause was actually letting him go, but I'll double check on that one. I thought he would have been the cornerstone of the rebuild. I just thought, given his size and given his same, physical makeup that Pippen had, I thought he would have been the obvious number 2 to step up. But that's my view. The way that the season had played out, there was footage that they took back to the 85-86 season with Jordan breaking his left foot and the minutes limit that he had to endure on his return. Thoughts on this? I mean, this is pre-load management era, is it not? To play, I mean, it was something ridiculous, was it not? It was like 7 minutes a half. That's hard to be productive in, just to get your rhythm.
Yeah. It's definitely, it was 7 minutes per half. So the hidden meaning, I guess, or the hidden agenda was, I think Jerry, the GM, was trying to make the Bulls pretty much flop and actually get a draft pick. So they wanted to match him up with a new draft pick for that year. So that's why the restriction came in. But then Jordan just sucked up those 7 minutes. He was like, if I'm going to play 14 minutes a game, I'm going to light it up. I'm going to load it up. When I'm on the court, it's non-stop. But I think from medical advice, it was a medium point for management and Jordan. Like he wanted to play, and then he went off to North Carolina, and without the medical staff knowing or the team knowing, he just started playing and rehabbing himself. Now he came back to the Bulls and said, I've been playing an hour and a half every day in college for the last week or 2 weeks or the month. And the Bulls were like, okay, if he's going to play in North Carolina, let's give him a minutes restriction. At least we get the fans get to see him play. Like, he shouldn't be playing in an empty arena, right? So yeah, it's interesting that Jordan didn't really care. The quote was he had a 10% chance of re-injuring, and once he re-injured it was his whole career on the line. But Jordan didn't want to hear it. Like, the way he is and his mentality is, I have a 90% chance of playing and actually contributing to a team that was vying for a playoff spot. Like, his mentality is crazy. Like any other player these days will be, okay, cool, I'll just take half season off, take a year off. Naming players, I guess, similar injuries or foot injuries is like Ben Simmons or something. Like he took a whole year off. There was a lot of players that take a whole year off just to protect your career. But Jordan, in his second year, didn't want to hear it. So it also adds to his I guess addiction to the game and addiction to winning.
Yeah, just that whole competitive fire that's in him. That's you've got molds of players, and RJ will probably scoff at this, but the Jordan mold had transmitted onto Kobe, and I know how RJ feels about the great Mamba, and it's just that fiery spirit that is the X factor. Not many professional athletes have that elite fire that you see in people like Jordan and Kobe, and LeBron, if for that matter. But it was just quite interesting to see, Jordan sit and be told to sit in the final. What was it, 14 seconds?
14 seconds
of the game, and what was on the line was a playoff berth, as opposed to a draft pick, and this is where the whole, once again, the first thing we talked about on this podcast episode was, picks defining the future and trajectory of the organization, as opposed to going for the win now. It was just an really interesting clash of opinion and of mindset, and just knowing that the way the show portrayed it was that was the telling moment for Jordan to distrust management, was that management were looking out for, the quote was, violating the fundamental rule of sport, which is to win all the time. And I thought that was quite telling. I thought that was really well done by the show about honing in that point about winning, and just going forward with taking in the positives of getting into a playoff series. I mean, we talk about it now, like developing teams like Dallas. We talk about how much of a benefit, like young teams, develop so much, even if they get swept in the first round of the playoffs. Just how much development getting into the playoffs means to a franchise. You look at last year, the most notable team last year was Brooklyn and the Nets making the playoffs on a young team, and just having that playoff experience, setting the tone for the team. I mean, Brooklyn has reshaped their team this season, but it was just quite interesting to note the clash of the different points of view an organization and players can have on that. I suppose one of the final things I wanted to talk about was Scottie Pippen. He signed a 7-year deal in the 1991 season for $18 million, coming on to the season that's featured in The Last Dance. It was his final year of that deal, and he goes into the season having late surgery. He's still backing himself that he's going to get his money wise. I just thought I just want to get your views on that long 7-year deal. And granted, he was definitely underpaid. I don't think that's arguable. I think he was the 122nd highest paid player, given that he was probably in the top 10 players at the time. It's just interesting the way contracts was structured back then, and just the makeup of the motivations for a player signing a 7-year deal. I'll start with you, Ajay.
Well, from the documentary, it was actually kind of bad timing for him to sign it, because after he signed it, apparently all the salaries have gone up. But at the same time, the point that he made, which look, I totally get, because he was really thinking about his corner, his family. Having his dad in the wheelchair, his brother in a wheelchair, so he had to make sure that something was sealed. So that was pretty much, he had to seal the deal with that contract. He had to make sure that they were taken care of. He said that himself. So I don't blame him for signing that, because he really had to make sure that they were covered. He didn't want to gamble on that. But the 7 years, even Reinsdorf even said to him that, I don't know if you really should sign it, because it's too long of a deal. But he really thought about his family. You can tell. He's just thinking about his family, and he had to make sure that they were safe, that they were, no matter what, they're covered. So he did the right thing. But at the same time, Reinsdorf was quite cutthroat, because he even said, well, once you sign that deal, they'll come back to me to upgrade your deal, to update your contract. And I thought, wow, like, this is a guy who's been dedicated to you guys, and then really putting in the work for you guys to win. I mean, gosh, give him a bit of leeway. I mean, the man is really looking after your organization. He's giving you guys championships. So I thought that, I don't blame Scottie for signing it. I really don't, because he was coming from a good place when he signed it. But at the same time, yeah, the Bulls organization is quite hard. They didn't so much, give the players, apart from Jordan, really, who was, mind you, also underpaid. That's another topic. But Pippen was really underpaid. But they didn't. The only thing that they really did, from what I researched anyway, they actually, at the end of his contract, they did a sign and trade with Houston. So that made him get him more money after that. So, but really, yeah, I just felt bad for the guy, because he was really Jordan's number 2 guy that really helped Jordan and the Bulls win. And the Bulls really should have, as an organization, should have really helped their number 2 player, earn. He'd earn it. They should have paid him more. That's what I feel anyway.
T,
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yep. So lots of layers to unwrap. So the first one is when he signed the deal his first year, he was the 16th most highest player paid in the NBA. So when it first started, they front loaded that contract, so he got a lot of money at the front. But then as the contract went on, I think RJ's touched on it. The TV rights went up. Just more money came in for the NBA, and because Pippen signed a long-term deal, he basically wasn't eligible to, I guess, to get all those deals. If he signed a shorter deal, they would allow him to renegotiate and go forward. But the organization is, they're not taking care of their own. So on that, I compare that deal to, I guess, like maybe Steph Curry's deal when he had bad ankles. He signed a 4-year, $44 million deal that allowed them to get Kevin Durant and build that dynasty of a team, right? So back to the Bulls, because they had Pippen on this small contract, they could go out, they could sign Rodman, they could sign all these role players at a high amount. Like Pippen was the 6th most paid player, highest paid player on his team. So you think about championship teams and you think about salaries. I didn't know Pippen got underpaid, but knowing now that he got underpaid and looking to the salaries of that season, I can see why they can build a championship team around him. And the owners had the motivation to make money, right? So they they basically didn't want to overpay all those players, because if they overpaid Pippen, maybe they couldn't get Tony Kukoc, they basically couldn't get Rodman, or they couldn't get Randy Brown, like all these minor role players that they had. The team comes at a price. So the question is, if he didn't sign that, would there be a championship team if he was on a high contract? And part of that is, at the time, the salary caps, there wasn't a hard cap. So people sign all sorts of deals, right? Like I read about Dave Robinson, like his salary was based on the highest two players on his team, the average. So there wasn't a bargaining agreement. There was nothing. Everything was out on the table. So that door actually allowed management to come in, and because it's between him and the Bulls. The Bulls literally can tear up that deal and then give him a new deal. But they just didn't want to, which is stubborn, right? And the other part of it, they kind of made up for it with that with the signing trade with Houston, and also at the end of his career, they also gave him like a mentor role, right? So they had him for 2 last seasons, and they paid him $10 million, and he only played 26 games. So that was like a parting gift to say, just to help him with his retirement. And then they also gave him a role up to this year, like he was an advisor for the Bulls. So
which they fired him again.
Yeah. So I don't know how you fire a legend. Like, sure, maybe it's just a generic role where he's still associated with the team, like they have some sort of charity event and he shows up. But yeah, they fired him again. Yeah, he spoke about it a little bit on a TV show, and it's just a comedy of errors how to handle a star. I haven't seen any, I guess, stars that sit on their team as an advisor be sacked and not asked back. So that's my views on Pippen. Just summing up, he had to take care of his family. Like his dad was disabled, and he also came off an injury. He had a bad back. So and also the first year he was not an All-Star. The time he signed the contract. So a lot of these things get kind of hidden in the documentary, because like all documentaries, right? There's a theme to it. Like I think they're trying to push the agenda of the Bulls team, the basketball team, as in the players and coaches versus management, because that's like any good drama, right? You get the good guys and the bad guys. And
because it's juicy.
It's juicy, right? Yeah, it's pretty much man drama, right? This is the stuff where we love, we love sports, and we love this drama. This is our drama, You get rid of all the trashy dramas. That's all for the ladies. But
don't worry about Bold and Beautiful, man. We got NBA, baby.
NBA, baby. That's it.
Look, I think I'm more partial to the brass view, and once a player's made up his mind to sign a deal, he's not forced to sign a deal. He's not under duress to sign a deal. If you make your bed, you got to lie in it. I'm sticking up for the Jerrys here, but but I'm not here to just smooth things over. This is my point of view. But your point taken, RJ, is possibly the Bulls could have treated the players better in terms of a re-upping or a renegotiation. That is engaged and initiated by the franchise. But I mean, what do they say? It's sports a business. It's not show time. It's show business, and
it's business.
I mean, you've got to be ruthless. The most successful people are the ruthless ones, and in business, and maybe things have changed nowadays with social media, and you've got to be more engaged regarding the outlook of your persona and how you market yourself. But raw deal. I mean, it was a long contract for Pips, but players, and players play the game for the love of the game. hopefully, that's the motivation. Is they grew up playing the game for the love of the game. And when you think about 18 million in the time span of 1991 to 1997, 98, it carried a lot further than it does today. I mean, $1 million today is still carrying you a long way. 18 million is still carrying you a long way in today's monetary scheme. So I have, I think I'm with the brass on this one. But just to wrap up, I've got one final topic, and it could be a non-topic at all, but we're talking about the greats of the game, and we're talking about The Last Dance featuring probably the greatest player to have ever graced the basketball court, Michael Jordan. Is the heir apparent. There were many along the lines. We talked about Ron Harper, touted heir apparent. Jerry Stackhouse was another one. The one that fulfilled the prophecy, King James himself.
Can I just hold you there for a second? You forgot one player that you said. Anthony Hardaway.
My boy Penny. There's much love to Penny. We will get onto this on another show. On another show, we will get onto the man.
Okay, all right.
Penny Hardaway, 2-time All NBA first team. We won't go into it at this point, all right? But to carry your team to the championship, who would you have as your focal point, your star? MJ or LeBron? Start with you, RJ. Who would you have?
Very good question, Dex. But I'm a fan of LeBron. I'm also a fan of Jordan. Look at the background. But I would have to say Jordan, because watching this documentary alone, just the two first episodes, he's pretty much setting the tone. And you can see even the players were even saying it. Like Jordan said, you know what? You change your attitude. This is this way. If you're not like it, you can get out. So I thought, wow, like that sets the tone from day one that, you got to be a particular way and you got to really fulfill your role. Like LeBron is good. Like, don't get me wrong. Doesn't take anything away from LeBron. But LeBron's not cutthroat. I don't think he's that cutthroat. Jordan's cutthroat, without a doubt. LeBron is like, okay, let's get this piece, and we can make a team together. That's cool. But Jordan is he's a different beast altogether. You can tell. So he sets the tone. It's his way or the highway. At the end of the game, it's his shot, no one else's, unless he says otherwise. And I would say Jordan. Sorry, but I would go Jordan.
Just before I get T to chime in here, a little change up to the question. If the game was played today in modern times, would you still pick Jordan?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. They would really flourish in this system, with this cupcake system of NBA today. Oh yeah, man. These are probably the highest scoring teams.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Point taken. T.
Yeah, like RJ, I'm a fan of both players, but yeah, with Jordan, you basically can't beat his mentality and his attitude towards the game. He comes in. There's not many beasts built like him. Yeah, with the 6-0 record in the finals too. Like the Bulls never got taken into a seventh game in the NBA finals, and that's mainly because Jordan takes his training or his practice more serious than games. Like his attitude from college all the way to the pros, if he plays the most hardest in practice, then the games come easily, right? So we saw footage of it, just a little bit of footage. They should show more of him, like just screaming at Harper, just getting on his teammates, getting on Tony. Yeah, like if he's getting on his own teammates like that, man, the opponents have no chance. There's no friendship, like, and like how to say LeBron is always friendly, buddy. We saw in the documentary that in the playoffs of before game 2, right? Jordan goes and plays golf with Danny Ainge. Like that was unheard of. Like when the players do these days, or the retired old players say that, oh yeah, we don't do that that day. But this is middle of the playoffs, and Jordan, it didn't affect his game. It actually made him step up even more because he lost to Danny Ainge and he lost a bit of money.
And Danny was talking trash.
He was talking trash, right? And then Jordan was just, he was literally just storing all this all up. He goes, you know what? I'm going to use this for tomorrow. And I'm going to score 63 on you, double overtime. I'm going to do whatever I can to win. They didn't win the game, but that game put him on the map. So I'd take Jordan 99, 100% time. 100% of the time if you give me that, Christian.
All right. I like arguing just for the sake of arguing, but I won't push the argument. I think the rings speak for themselves. The ring count. The only plus side I'd say for this, for arguing for LeBron, and I can make a solid argument about this. I think in terms of athleticism and what he could do in terms of his different roles for the team, I think LeBron is more versatile than Jordan in the way he can play the game, whether it be a facilitator or the dominant scorer or the defender as well. In saying that, I think rings speak for themselves, and time will tell whether or not King James will match or better his airness, Michael Jordan. But it's been a fascinating chat, gents. I hope you're both keeping well during these challenging times of COVID-19. And I'm sure that we will speak more ball in the future. This is the Shooters Roller podcast made by fans for the fans. We're all on your social media platforms, as well as you can pick up the latest episodes of this show on Apple Podcasts and also on Spotify. View us on YouTube and say hey to us by email or on our Insta account or Facebook account. So, you know what? Until next time, keep on keeping on, and let's keep dancing. There's going to be more great episodes of this show, The Last Dance. Until then, take care of yourselves, gents.
Later, guys.
Thanks, P. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man.